basically.
Okay, first of all, this graduation and retention rate, we don't need any comparisons. I know John Heller created comparisons, but legislators are absolutely adamant about any notion of tier institutions. So
Okay.
they want it. We never give, that's one of the biggest criticisms. They say when we ask a question, just answer the question. Don't give us more information. We don't want it. Okay? So what we need is those tables that you have. Would you please immediately wipe out those comparisons and just have 2010, 2011, 2012?
Okay.
You know what I'm talking about?
I do. When we put together the table, it was based on the question that was on the memo. And it did ask for a comparison.
There is no such a thing for comparison. I have it here. What do you mean? It says the most, it's in front of me and you send it, you better read it again. It says the most recent 4- and 6-year graduation rate, 4-year institutions only. There is no comparison.
Okay, I'll reread it. I'll go check and, yeah, but
no comparison.
I will, regardless, I will take it off. Yeah.
It is black and white. It says comparison. The second, the word draft makes it shaky. It's either number or not. Why is it draft?
It is a draft because we did the double checking, but the validation team, the person who generated the data generally needs the opportunity to be able to say, yes, this is good, prior to release.
Oh my God, how long does it take for the data to be good? Well, aren't we going and picking it up from the federal government website? Why should we double check?
Well, because we're not taking it verbatim from the website. We're taking it off of the website and putting it into our own graph. If we were taking the copied report off, I would have no problem. But there's always human error, and there's always that chance that it could be incorrect just because of a transposition error.
Linda, this is just a matter of not checking an accounting number. You put this thing and you go to the website and check number by number.
Yeah, and
how long does it take? That doesn't take 15 minutes.
Yes.
Right? If that's what you're talking about, validation, it's just checking the number. Reading 406, this is 406. You know, whatever, 503, 503. I mean, it doesn't mean rechecking because you're not recalculating.
Correct. But according to the structure that we were trying to put in place to ensure that we don't make mistakes in transposition or checking the website.
Why do I say tomorrow? It should have been done before Monday. Why do I say tomorrow? When they say Chancellor, why is it draft?
Sir, I understood, and it was explained to me that this was only for internal use.
Oh my Lord, who told you that? This is fucking important. You have even supplied this information to the president, right, or not?
No, I have not.
Okay, this is not for internal use. This is for me, that if the presidents come in and say my graduation rate is 65%, I get up and say, no, that's not correct. It's 23%. So is it not for internal use? And by the way, your email was forwarded to me by Randall. It's not correct. Nobody told you. We're not hiding this thing. There is nothing hidden about it or confidential about it. This letter has gone to the president. But also, the Representative Skarphol has asked me that you better have these numbers ready because I want to cross-check it. So that's why I wanted to have it too. They told us to not supply it to presidents. They want independently the presidents to submit their numbers, and they want the chancellor to have his numbers. That was the mandate to us. So there's not a secrecy about it. They want to make sure that if there is discrepancy, I get up and say. So it's late, and it's Monday, and tomorrow I have to present. I have to get Rebecca waiting for me to clean my slides. That's essentially what it is.
I will do that.
Number one. Number two is that Bismarck State College is incorrect. Oh, by the way, another thing, please. It says what Representative Skarphol has is 4-year and 6-year graduation rate. On top of your letter, you said graduate rate cohort as percentage of full-time undergraduate as a percentage of total entering student bachelor's degree graduation rate. Rates of full-time, first-time degree certificate seeking undergraduate within 4, 6-year, and 8-year. What is 8-year? We're not talking about 8-year.
I can, if you would like, I will remove the 8-year.
I don't want the 8-year, Linda.
I will remove it.
Okay. So just say within 4 and 6 years, period. So every little
Are you still there? Yes, I'm still here.
Oh, you were disconnected. I called you back.
Oh no, this is Linda.
Yeah, I know, Linda. Yeah, I know. Because I got disconnected and I called you back. I thought, yeah, that.
Oh, okay. So I'm going to remove the draft. I'm going to remove the draft. I'm going to remove the comparisons, and I'm going to remove
comparison. Yes.
draft comparisons and the 8-year.
So just with the top would be 4 to 6-year graduation rate, and I honestly think I don't need any of those information on the top. All you have to do is remove it and just say 4 and 6-year. But there is no 6. Oh yes, there is 4 and 6-year, and then 8 years on the bottom. Oh my God! Can you eliminate that too, please?
Yes, I'm happy to do.
I didn't notice that.
Yeah.
So the comparison goes, the top goes only say 4 and 6-year graduation rates.
Correct.
And then on the bottom row, 8-year graduation, that goes too.
Yes.
And the comparison goes, so it's going to be much slimmer skeleton.
Yes.
Okay. So second, the same thing about North Dakota State, University of North Dakota State, Minot State, all the
Yeah.
4-year colleges.
All the way through. Yes, all the way through.
And as you have it, because we don't have any time, as you have it, just send it to me as whatever, as a spreadsheet, the way you have it exactly. So I can shoot it to Rebecca, and I'm going to say, forget about making it fancy, just make a slide out of it.
Sounds good.
Okay, now let's go to Bismarck State. Bismarck State, other community colleges, you have fun. It's fine with me. You have it correct. You say that, okay, you have normal graduation rate. You have 150% normal time and 200 times. Enlighten me. 2 years, 3 years, and 4 years. Is that what you're saying?
Once again, this is how iPads reported their graduation rates, not as 2-year and 4-year, but as that 200 and 150.
I understand that, but in a common person's language, thing that we have to say 150% normal time or 200% time, that's okay. I can talk about it, but leave that alone. But I don't need that top line. I don't need the draft, the graduate grades, the graduate grade cohort as percentage
Yes,
of all
yes.
It gets confusing to these people, and I have to explain it, and I don't want to explain it.
Okay, no, that's fine.
Yeah, because it takes more time and whatever. So, then graduation rate cohort as percentage of entering class. I honestly think, would you please get rid of that line too? That one we don't need it either, because that's
Okay.
yeah.
Sounds good. And the 150 and the 200 on the 2-year schools, correct?
Yeah, okay, the two-year school, all three of them, normal, 150 and 200.
Okay, and leave all that, sounds good.
You leave the rest of it out and get rid of the comparisons, all of the comparisons.
Sounds good.
So, and the first line shows the graduation rate of 2-year, on the top you have 2-year, 150% of normal time and 200% in ultra. That's beautiful.
Sounds good.
So for 2-year colleges, there will be 3 rows instead of 2.
Exactly.
Okay, now let's go back to Bismarck State. Bismarck State does not have the 2-year, 150, 2-year, 150 or 200%. It has only overall. That is the table that Laura gave.
When I go to pull the report, off of iPads, that they do not have, and I will double check, but they do not have that 150 and 200 rate published.
Okay, let me help you on that. You know why? Because they have one 4-year degree. They have probably identified themselves as a 4-year institution. You hearing what
Oh yeah, it makes sense.
Now that's the whole point, but it's wrong because we have to really clarify that, and that's a very important issue because one degree doesn't make an institution 4-year institution.
That's true.
I mean, we want to compare the. I mean, we want to make the facts regarding one degree program the facts of life for the entire college.
Oh no, I'm not disagreeing at all.
And that's really quite a problem.
What I'll need to do is what I'll have to do is footnote that it came from a different, because I imagine that in a different part of the site that they do have that the 2 and 4-year graduation rate for Bismarck, but I'll have to footnote it because it will become from a different source page, which is fine.
That's all right. It doesn't matter as long as it's from iPad. It doesn't matter. So yeah, please try. But first, do me a favor. First, send me these 4-year colleges and all the 2-year colleges that you have correct. You see what I'm saying?
I do.
So I mean, let's send me everything because it's just a matter of eliminating it and cleaning it up and sending it back to me.
Yep.
As soon as you can, and then work on this one. And you see what I'm saying? So I can, while you're doing others, I can ask Rebecca to make these slides.
Sounds good.
And then what happens to those 3 other things that you sent the email that is coming?
I've sent the admin numbers, the admin numbers, and a couple other things off to her. I'll put that, I'll tell you, I'll include copies of what I sent to Laura when I send you this updated.
Please, because she hasn't forwarded to me. She's probably sitting down and checking it. At this stage, I'm desperate, so just send it to me.
All right. Sounds good. I will do that.
Unchecked rather than not having it at all. I'm sure she will send it to me later, but it's better to have it. So I appreciate that, but this is the most important, this graduation rotation rate, and then send those updates.
I will do that right now.
Thank you so much.
Not a problem.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right. My question of the committee members would be, did you hear anything in there that sounded fragile? Because I don't. I hear someone in charge of an entity who gets a little frustrated with an employee because there seems to be a dilemma with how to present this information, but nothing fragile. We've told them we don't want complicated answers to questions. We don't want volumes of information. We want simple information provided to us. Now, these accusations are absolutely frustrating to me. And in the interest of open disclosure, there was an open records request made for every email between the parties indicated earlier, from February 28th to the date early this week, very early this week. some very disturbing communications taking place behind the scenes, and from my perspective, in an effort to discredit the very person who has been hired to head up the university system, and it's being done by people within that system. And I'd like to have answers. We were asked to investigate. We were asked by Linda Porter to investigate. So, I asked Ms. Reichert and Ms. Dietrich to be here. I'm assuming Ms. Dietrich has chosen not to. But my intent is to ask some questions, and I expect answers. In reading through emails, again, I was accused of allowing the Chancellor to set the agenda for these meetings by Ms. Dietrich. And I'll guarantee you, if the Chancellor was setting these agendas, they would be much more well organized than when I do it. The only thing that I've coordinated with the Chancellor is when he's available to be here. I don't find that unreasonable. The students. I want to talk about the students just a little bit and their protests. I've read the draft minutes and the minutes from their meetings, and I find it absolutely amazing to read their minutes. Because in the January and February minutes, there was no discussion about angst over the Chancellor or his plans. And in fact, on the February 25th meeting, the Chancellor presented to him and then left. And they didn't get into a discussion about what a bad Chancellor he was. They didn't even mention the presentation afterwards. They went on with their business. But they've made accusations of the board about open meetings violations. And if you read their minutes, it becomes very obvious that they had discussions at their social the night before and made decisions that the next day they approved. So I think people that live in glass houses ought not throw stones here. And I would suggest that any student that participated in that shouldn't be qualified to be on the State Board of Higher Education. Committee members, do you have any questions at this time, comments you want to make? Because I'm going to ask Ms. Dietrich to come to the podium here momentarily. Ms. Dietrich, would you come to the podium, please?
For the record, I'm Carrie Reichert, not.
Well, I'm sorry, Carrie Reichert. Would you please push the button on the mic so the blue light comes on? And identify yourself for the clerk.
My name is Carrie Reichert, member of the State Board of Higher Education.
Ms. Reichert, I have a series of questions I want to ask you. And like I said, I've read through a lot of emails. So, were you aware that Ms. Porter was going to make allegations in her testimony to this committee March 27th prior to the committee meeting?
No, I had no idea that Ms. Beza Porter had any intention of testifying.
Okay. Did you meet Ms. Beza Porter in person or on the phone prior to testifying to discuss the allegations?
Yes, she contacted me on Monday the 25th by phone,
Okay.
and I met her in person on the 27th that morning for the first time here at Capitol.
So you have no prior information with regard to files that she had, information that she had that she was going to furnish?
I had no idea she was going to furnish it to this committee, she contacted me on Monday and began sending me emails on Tuesday with copies of spreadsheets and reports that she actually amassed a very large Dropbox space for all of this information. And quite frankly, there was a lot there. It involves data and comparisons, and I didn't really go through with it, or go through it in detail.
So did you share this knowledge with the general counsel or the compliance officer? What's the protocol as a board member when you start getting information like that?
Well, one, we've never been educated on any protocol. Two,
excuse me, are you an attorney?
I am.
And would you not think that as an attorney there would be a protocol?
Yes, if we were dealing with complaints about a staff member, I would think that the general counsel would be very well equipped to handle that. When complaints are being made about the CEO of an organization, I would expect that to go to the board for investigation.
Did it go to the board from you?
Yeah, Don was in the loop, Kirsten.
Was the president of the board in the loop?
I don't know whether or not he was contacted. Understand that there was a lot of information here, and as you said, I don't hear any fraud. So as I look through this, am I gonna, make a big deal if there's really no there? I wanted to go through it myself before I'm making a big, fuss about it. And quite frankly, in our system, our general counsel reports to the chancellor. She's not independent. She's not our independent counsel to the board. So we'd be asking her to investigate allegations against her boss. And I have since requested an independent investigation, at least more than once. I'm not the only one.
Okay. So you submit that you did not review this stuff prior to the meeting, and you had, as far as knowledge of the fact she was going to testify, you became aware of that when?
After it happened. I had to leave at 10:30 that morning. I was here for another reason, actually, somewhat related. So I learned about the meeting, learned that the presidents had been called in, and I think Kirsten learned the same. Apparently they were called in as late as Monday and told to show up. And I found the whole thing rather curious, so I showed up that morning to find out more. And I had a meeting at 10:30 actually, so I stepped out, and Kirsten texted me later to explain what had happened.
So the email dated the 26th of March between you and Janice Hopper, in which it was stated we will see what happens tomorrow, is relevant to?
Well, let me back up. A couple weeks ago I had lunch with Ham, and he mentioned that you had 17 questions for the presidents that were going to expose some inconsistencies in the system.
No.
I'm telling you what Ham and I had a conversation about. At that time, I didn't think a lot of it. I thought, great, it sounded like you were doing your job and had some questions. On Monday, I got a call. Maybe it was Linda who first told me that there had been these multiple data requests to the system office. I was confused by that. I thought, why are you, and that they were told not to speak to the campus. And I found that, again, rather curious. And then I learned that they related to these 17 questions that you had submitted to each of the campuses. And what was curious to me was that the campuses were instructed not to work with the campuses. And so it began to appear to me as though there were independent data being pulled, designed with the design of proving that the campuses are not reporting things consistently amongst themselves, ultimately to show that we need additional resources in the system office. And to me, it appeared as though this was, kind of a plan to demonstrate something for this committee that was done unbeknownst to the presidents, and I wasn't comfortable with that. What I mean is that they were not told that there would be a separate data feed or a separate data pull, as you heard Ham say in the recording, that he would have the data in hand to correct them should they say anything that was inconsistent with the system, with what the system office had. And I didn't feel like that was on the level.
You expressed that concern to anyone else on the board?
I did.
To whom?
I shared that concern with Kirsten and Janice. I talked to Ham about it. That's why I showed up. I wanted to know what was going to be said on that Wednesday morning. And as I left, I spoke to Ham about it in the hallway, and I followed up with an email, which I'm sure you've read, asking him to correct my understanding of the facts.
Okay. And with regard to the instructions that the Chancellor received on that task of verifying the information, that was my request. And as such, I would expect it to be honored. Because of the fact that we've also been provided documents about inconsistencies, inabilities to retrieve verifiable and replicatable information. So I guess I think we have the right to verify.
I don't mean to imply that you don't.
All right. So You maintain that you did not receive files from Linda Bays of Porter until,
I believe Monday or Tuesday, I have to check my email. 25th or 6th, probably the 26th.
and because it was so voluminous, you did nothing with it.
I wouldn't say, I looked it over, I listened to what she had to say, but my bigger concern at that time was that I felt the presidents were about to be, I guess, blindsided, for lack of a better word, by showing up here on Wednesday and being told, oh, by the way, the numbers you presented, they're wrong, here's what we have. And I felt like that was part of an effort to show there were inconsistencies. And so that was my concern, that's why I was here.
And what happened?
At one point, I think I went over to someone to ask, what is going on? I thought the idea was to talk about these 17 questions. And I believe Dr. Kelly was called at first, and then the questions seemed to be coming from every angle. So
Again, like I said, the agenda would be much more well organized had Ham had the responsibility for doing it. So you knew in advance that she was going to be here to testify, correct?
no, I did not know that she wanted to testify. I'm not even sure I knew she was going to be here. I think I might have been a little surprised that she walked up and introduced herself to me. No, that's not true. She did, because she told me that she described herself as the curliest haired white woman you've ever seen. And so I knew to look for her the next day. She told me she would be here. I had no idea she wanted to testify.
Well, Ms. Reichert, I will continue to go through these emails, and we will continue to attempt to verify what actually transpired. Because I have been asked, you know, to investigate this, and I will provide the committee with all of the emails. And it's a bunch, so that they can do it as well. And I'm still extremely angry about the fact that there seems to have been an attempt to discredit and continue to create, to maintain the controversy with regard to the board and the chancellor, and primarily with the chancellor. And I sincerely believe, based on the emails, that you have participated by your actions.
Mr. Chairman, with all due respect, I believe it's my job as a board member to oversee the chancellor's activities. And so that's why I was here. And I felt that it would have been the right approach to coordinate with the campuses. That's what we've asked him to do, to pull together the system and work with the presidents. And I felt like what I was seeing was exactly the opposite. That's why I was here. Linda provided me information, and as I said before, as a board member, I feel like it's an allegation about the CEO. It's my responsibility, our responsibility as a board. And I am still very much pushing that we have an independent investigation. Now, I also know this was reported to the fraud hotline, so I believe that's being investigated internally as well. And my understanding was that Dawn had actually provided Claire with some of this information previously.
Dawn
Right.
had provided Claire.
Yes. And she can correct me if I'm wrong, but that was my understanding of Kirsten.
So why didn't you provide her with information?
Again, I think, you know, as an attorney, I mean, that's asking you to investigate your boss. There's a clear conflict of interest.
Merely providing her with the concern, or providing the compliance officer with the concern.
Well, I assume that they would follow up and investigate that concern.
Okay. And with any organization you work with, do you not report to the general counsel if you have a concern about the actions of one of the, you know?
In our organization, complaints about the CEO go to the board president.
Okay. Well, did you go to the board president?
No, like I said, I looked at this information. There was a lot to it. Just listening to Linda, I didn't have immediate serious concerns, as you said. You didn't hear a lot of fraud. I wanted to take the time to look at it before raising a big stir about it.
Questions from the committee? Representative Munson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, I'm curious about your comment that you didn't want to blindside the presidents, but you had no problem blindsiding the chairman here in this committee for letting it happen.
Again, I had no idea when the time to testify. In fact, Kirsten texted me later to tell me I didn't even know how it happened. She wasn't on the agenda, I'm assuming. I mean, I believe she was asked a question by a committee member.
She was not on the agenda. She was brought forward by a committee member, yes.
again,
unbeknownst to me, that this was all going to take place.
the first time I heard from Ms. Bailey Porter was last week, Monday. So to suggest that would you like to see my phone records? I mean, really? I mean, the first time I heard from her was last week, Monday. The idea that I would have generated emails prior to that from, Randall to the system staff saying, don't talk to the campuses. I mean, the things that caused me to have concern happened well before I'd ever spoken to Ms. Bailey Porter.
All right, further questions? Thank you. Shirvani.
Good morning, my name is Dr. Josh Shirvani. I am the Associate Chief Information Officer for the North Dakota University System and serve as the Chief Information Officer for the University of North Dakota.
Were you aware of the Ms. Porter's allegations prior to her testimony? Were you made aware of them? Or did you get emails with regard to them?
I did get an email from Ms. Porter at about 5 o'clock in the morning the day of. On my phone, it looked like just any other message from Linda. The files were in zip format, which I could not open on my phone, and to be honest, I did not pay a lot of attention to the message until later in the day after Randall Thursby called me at lunch to indicate what had happened. I went back and I opened those files with two members of SID staff that are responsible for administration, and we reviewed them very in very brief fashion.
So you submit that you did not meet with Ms. Bailey Porter to talk about any testimony with allegations prior to the meeting?
I was in Randall Thursby's office until about 7 o'clock or 6:30 Tuesday evening. My understanding is I'm Linda's supervisor. My understanding was she was going to be in Bismarck. Monday, when we were asked to work on this request, was Passover. Linda is Jewish, and so I granted her the hours she worked on that day off. The following day, my understanding was she had business in Bismarck, including checking out of her apartment.
So is that your voice at the beginning of the tape?
I don't know how it could be my voice. I was at home with my wife in Grand Forks. My understanding is Linda was in Bismarck.
On the tape, they said you were taxiing.
Oh, I'm sorry, the actual tape. I was on a runway in Minneapolis on my way to Indianapolis. Dr. Shirvani called and left a voicemail message for me. I emailed Linda or texted Linda, I don't recall, and asked her to follow up because it was a data question. Upon landing in Indianapolis, I did indeed have a conversation with Dr. Shirvani.
So you submit you had no prior knowledge, never received any of the files, never heard the concerns expressed by Linda with regard to this.
I expressed to Randall that members of the research and validation group working on this request had a sense of unease. I did that on Monday and then briefly after my meeting with Chancellor Shirvani and Randall on Tuesday evening. But I did not know what she was going to do. I didn't know she was taking any action, to be honest.
So the 5:30 email in the morning from her was not unusual?
Oh, I would say it was unusual, but I had my phone. Linda sends me a lot of messages, a lot of documents. I lead the research and validation team, and Linda does report to me. This time of year with legislative requests, there's many messages, many documents. As I indicated, the file was zipped together, so I really couldn't see its contents. And the way it displays on a phone, I did not realize the message was actually sent to Senator Greenberg as opposed to myself.
You didn't notice that?
You can't see it on the phone without opening the message, so I didn't realize that. No, not until later.
The message was marked as a high priority and that didn't mean anything to you?
Again, on my phone, that high priority does not show. I will say that earlier this week, I did provide the file that you listened to General Counsel and the Compliance Officer at their request, the first meeting we had to discuss the matter.
Okay. In reading through the emails, there are a significant number that you are CC'd on. And I find it a little unusual that you aren't more aware
Aware of what?
and have the position you have.
I am leader of that team. I am the supervisor. So again, she does copy me on a number of messages. I have been involved with the research and validation. I was aware of Linda's concerns.
Questions for Mr. Reedy from the committee? Representative Munson.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Reedy, Dr. Reedy, as her supervisor, do you approve of the way she handled that?
I guess on a personal level, when she would have sought my advice, I wouldn't have advised her to do what she did, but she did not seek my advice. And by her actions, it's placed the entire research and validation team, myself included, in, I would say, a delicate situation, especially as her supervisor.
Mr. Chairman, may I continue?
Yes.
So what do you plan to do about that?
As I indicated on Tuesday, I did speak with the compliance officer. Monday, I was not able to. I did speak later in the afternoon with General Counsel and the CIO, Randall Thursby, as well as the compliance officer. My understanding is that not only the file that you listened to, Belinda's oral testimony, would be transcribed so that we could fully understand what she indicated, both in testimony and by way of that file. And that would be used for purposes that are pursued in investigation of sorts. I have provided documentation or messages Linda has sent to me to General Counsel and Compliance Officer as well at their request.
May I continue?
Yes.
So do you, as the supervisor, feel any responsibility for the way this was handled? The way it kind of wheeled out of control?
I think it was unfortunate, but I'm not certain what I could have done to stop Linda had I known about it. She's a grown woman, she makes her own decisions. She spent most of her time in Bismarck due to the nature of her job, so rarely do we have face-to-face conversation or contact unless she's in Grand Forks. I lament most what this has done to the research and validation team and other team members because it's created a great deal of unease within our team and our organization.
Representative Straley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just one question on what I found kind of odd is in an email, she was asking your opinion and Ms. Reichert what she should do or say in that on the Joel Heitkamp show. And I just found that weird why she would be asking you two individuals about that.
I do not recall a message of that nature. I believe, and again, I don't have messages in front of me, so this would be from memory, but I believe Linda did send a message that indicated that something along the lines of how should she be responding to press inquiries, something of that nature, of which I did not respond.
Yep, and you didn't, you're correct, you didn't respond. I just thought it was kind of odd that she was asking, but as the superior, maybe that's normal, but I just found that to be interesting. And then, you know, further asking, well, Ms. Riker was the one that responded, I guess, so maybe it's more appropriate for her, but.
She can feel free to come to the podium.
I did respond. Ms. Mesa put her, I found it kind of odd as well. And my response to her was, you know, I'm not really comfortable with media requests either. Here's what I would say. And at the same time, you understand she knows I'm an attorney, and so one of the things she expressed to me was concern for her job and any sort of retaliation. I would advise her not to go on the show as well. I don't know, you know, but she was acting according to her conscience, and I tried to do, the right thing, try to do the right thing, and, say, okay, here's what I would do. I didn't want to see anything negative happen to her again. She was doing what she thought was right.
Mr. Chairman, and I agree. I just thought it was weird that a system mid-level employee is emailing a board member asking, and I know it's not your fault that she sent it to you, but it just seems odd that that's just totally not how things usually work. But, you don't say anything unreasonable in this reply, so.
And that would have been, my understanding was that the reason she reached out to Kirsten and I and Dawn was that I think she had gone to the AG's office, she had gone to, and then the AG's office referred her to some legislators who referred her to us. I think she was looking for an outlet. And, I think someone to listen to her and take her concerns seriously, because she believed they're very serious. So, yeah, I did respond.
Thank
Excuse me. You responded, and then she responded, would you please call me? And then you responded, I'm sorry, I can call at 7:45. I have a meeting that I'm leading in 5 minutes. Just trying to pull together an agenda. And she emailed you back, MP. I'm assuming that means no problem. I will do my very best. Do your meeting. Josh and I will talk in a moment and craft an appropriate response. Once again, for the good of the order, this is my philosophy. I'm hearing rumors of other things from the other side. You can help me understand that comment.
It'd be nice if Linda were here. I don't know either.
Sounds to me like your side's been taken.
That would be sad.
Yeah, it would be very sad. Mr. Eggert.
Mr. Chairman,
Representative Grady.
I had a question of
Mr. Reedy.
A couple of times you made the question or a statement that you were aware of her concerns.
Yes.
And in that, with being her supervisor, did you feel these concerns were valid?
I believe that the research and validation team, with the request that was made of them on Monday at 10 o'clock in the morning in an impromptu nature, caused a great deal of stress on the group. I believe Linda in particular, being Passover, which is a Jewish holiday of significance, it caused additional stress for her. I know that she'd also had concerns the prior week in providing the same information. And if you look at some of that, the guidance I gave her was to provide the best data, document that accordingly, but not to provide the information of the insubordination. And so I do know there were those stressors on her. And again, she expressed that at the 10 o'clock meeting with Mr. Thursby. And Mr. Thursby and I talked briefly Tuesday evening after a meeting in Fargo with the Chancellor. And Mr. Thursby is my supervisor.
So, did you want to continue?
No, thank you.
Do you share the Chancellor's opinion that retrieving data off of iPads shouldn't require all that much validation when all you're doing is being asked to provide graduation rates that are reported on iPads? You simply transpose them onto a document, look to make sure it's been done correctly? How much work does it take for a validation team to do the little bit of work required for 11 institutions to provide statistics?
I think, so there's 2 points in time. There was the time of the recording, and then there was the following Monday at 10 o'clock when Mr. Thursby made the request of us. At 10 o'clock, we were asked to take institutional responses and try to rectify them with what information we knew. And so that was a process of going through and trying to understand without having, or with having limited contact with the institutions, how they derived their numbers. And the call with Chancellor Shirvani with iPads is just making certain that you have the right table, you have the right cohort, you have the right year. As a matter of fact, Tuesday when I was in Fargo waiting to meet with Chancellor Shirvani. I did work with Mitt Picklick, and we worked for about 2 hours to make sure we did have proper IPEDS information. And then we orally transcribed that to Mick and put it in a spreadsheet form. So it is a little bit of a process just to make sure it's transcribed correctly and you have the right information, but it is not beyond what Chancellor Shirvani indicated, which is just review of that information.
Representative Stratton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Has Ms. Porter been asked who were the people setting this up? Because obviously you can hear in the tape that somebody was helping her set this recording. Does anybody specifically ask her who the individuals were?
Part of my conversation with Schurston Friends is, as their supervisor, not having a real precedent of how to work with Linda so that there's no retaliation, and yet being fair and prudent and following process. So Linda and I have talked several times since, but I've tried to keep the context of that in regard to what she's being asked to do as an employee. So no, we have not had that conversation.
Senator Grandy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can you guys clarify for me the date of this recording we just listened to?
27.
And what day of the week was that?
No, the 17th. I believe it was the 17th, wasn't it?
It was a Sunday. I was traveling to
The
Indianapolis.
recording.
The recording? That
I made
recording,
the same mistake earlier.
the recording was Sunday,
The 17th. Yep.
and you said that you were then meeting with people at 10 o'clock then that Monday?
No, it would be the Monday following that.
Monday following that?
Yes.
Okay. And was Linda at that Monday meeting?
Yes, as I indicated, that was Passover, but with the meeting request, she willingly came in to meet with us. My understanding is, I believe she stayed in, we worked in the same room. I believe she stayed in the room until approximately, say, 1 o'clock or so in the afternoon, before she left the rest of the team to work until 5 or 6 o'clock.
Seder Passover started at sundown Monday.
I'm not
Until-
sure. I don't know.
Until
Honestly, don't know.
Tuesday sundown. But, I'm just trying to get the time frames in my head, because it just seems like there was a whole week of time that work could have all been done. So we had a whole
I
week
can't answer that
and we
question.
still waited till the last day for a panic.
I can't answer that question.
Other questions of Mr. Reedy?
Mr. Chairman, I think, I'm not sure I really have a question, but I think this is kind of an interesting discussion that doesn't really pertain to what the charges were, what she talked about. I personally don't care who did what to whom. I don't care who taped, who was listening, who the chancellor was talking to on the other line at the same time, or which board members support the chancellor and which don't. I don't particularly care about that. What I do think we should talk about is that was the basic allegation that she made, and which was also referred to by Ms. Reichert. And that was were the schools, nobody's questioning the IPAD data, but were the schools changed on the report to make them look poorer than they really are? Now, I think you can use the data to show that the University of North Dakota is doing great, or you can compare it to schools to make it look like it's really doing poorly. And that's what that was her basic charge, was that the schools were changed to make the schools look worse. And as Ms. Reichert said, she was concerned the presidents were being set up to report data that was going to be refuted by the chancellor. So I don't really care who said, I don't care about all your emails or what the conspiracy is or any of that stuff. The only thing I care about is, was there an attempt to make the schools look worse than they are, so that would support us giving more employees to the system office?
Representative Stratton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We got all those documents. If the chancellor would have used their hand-picked peers, they would have looked worse. So in fact, the data that the chancellor used made them look better, because the hand-picked peers, their graduation rates are higher. So the argument that he was trying to punish them, if he was trying to punish them, he would have used their data, because it's actually worse than what he presented.
Well, I would just say that, Mr. Chairman, if that's a fact, end of discussion. Let's move on to something else.
Representative Martinson, we're going to finish this discussion today. Mr. Reedy.
emails.
You submit to me that, you know, you couldn't read all this stuff on your phone. But I also think that when you get on a phone message on your phone, there's a subject line. And the subject line on the email you got that this morning was all the documents I think you need today. Now, in the normal turn of events, that wouldn't surprise you, but I think you would have to find it a little unusual that you and Senator Grinberg received that email.
I've questioned myself why I received that message. To be honest, I received a lot of messages from Linda, a lot of attachments. That particular subject line means little to me, and as I indicated before, I take responsibility for not looking further into that message and understanding what it was until later in that day.
Representative Martinson, the subject line on yours was questions and answers. And Mr. Eggert, the subject line on yours is the rest of the story.
So what? So what's your point?
Well, for all of these emails to be sent at 4:48 in the morning, or 5:05 in the morning, or 6:06 in the morning, the day of the event, I find it a little bit unusual. No, maybe a whole bunch unusual. And that you're the one that asked her to be allowed to testify.
So what's the point?
The point is, Representative Martinson, that we don't act this way in a professional environment, I don't believe. And I find all of this to be very unprofessional, because if you had not blindsided me, we wouldn't even be having this discussion.
So,
Mr. Eggert,
so I get a call, and
you got an email.
so I still don't see your point. If I would have asked you, can she testify, what would have you told me?
And said about what?
Okay.
And then I would have given the Chancellor an opportunity to at least be prepared to respond.
So basically, you're irritated with me, you've made that clear.
I'm irritated with more than just you. You're one of several that are involved, have been, in my mind, involved in trying to continue the embarrassment that has been taking place all session.
Do you really want to open up that can of worms and we'll talk about conversations? You really want to do that?
Well, you know,
About firing presidents, firing staff, things that you've told me? Should we go there? You want to do that?
we can do that if you wish.
I think we've drug this around.
Mr. Eggert, you're the internal auditor.
Yes, sir.
Weren't you intrigued by the email that you got on that morning? The rest of the story.
It was.
Please pass this on to your colleagues. And what did you do with it? Did you take it to General Counsel?
I was under the assumption General Counsel already was aware of this.
Did you take it to the compliance officer?
I too thought she was aware of this. I was told that, I asked Linda if she followed the proper chain of command. That was one of my concerns. When I was brought into this, she said the Chancellor is using fraudulent numbers. Well, you use the word fraud around me, I get a little, my ears perk up. She handed me a presentation with some comparison universities, and I'm not sure where that presentation was used. And I quickly looked at the IPED's website and said, and validated those numbers. They're the correct numbers on the IPED's website. And I said, these are not fraudulent numbers. Don't use that word. And then I went, if this is a concern of yours, did you follow your chain of command? Did you go to a compliance officer?
When did this conversation take place?
Wednesday afternoon, I would say, last week.
So after the fact?
No, before the Thursday meeting, I believe.
Wednesday meeting?
Oh, was it Wednesday? Then it was the day before the meeting. And I said, these are not, don't use the word fraud.
And that's as far as you went with it? You didn't go any further up the ladder with Chancellor, with the General Counsel?
Again, I thought they were in the loop. She said she went through the chain of command. She went to the AG's office after no action was taken from our office.
You consistently make that kind of a decision? With regard to someone that brings you that level of concern, you don't go anywhere with it?
I didn't this time, no. Again, I thought they were aware.
Questions for Mr. Egger? He's the internal auditor in the system office.
I will say the fraud report did come through. I will be researching this as well.
Representative Dodge.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Egger, so you said when you looked at those numbers, there's no fraud, and she shouldn't be using that, right? I mean, you didn't find any fraud.
Yeah, I said these are valid IPEDS numbers.
Okay,
Don't
thank
use
you.
the word fraud.
Thank you.
So why are you continuing an investigation if there's no fraud?
I haven't dug in yet. I'm not sure what I'm looking at, actually. I got all the paperwork sitting on my desk. I haven't had a chance to do it yet.
Any other questions for Mr. Egger? Thank you. Ms. Dietrich and Ms. Hofford obviously chose not to attend. So we're not going to be able to answer the questions at this time. Chancellor Shirvani, would you like to make some comments in response to what you've heard today, or?
Chairman Skarphol, members of the committee, I don't know what to say, so just speechless. I'm extremely dismayed and unhappy about the whole chain of events and allegations, and this is my reputation. These articles that these reporters which are here and use the word fraudulent or fraud and all of those things cannot be wiped out. It's just going to be there. And as you see here, there was absolutely no fraudulent data or fake data. Number one. Number two is the question of trying to look presidents bad or good. This is preposterous, because the questions you ask are standard questions, standard data that we should have on tip of our finger. There was nothing secret about it, for God's sake. The entire nation, from President Obama down to every state, is concerned about graduation rate, time to degree. Everybody's goal is to reduce that time. The question of retention, the question of increased remediations. I mean, these are some very standard questions. And I wanted to clarify, you send that letter and you wanted independently to get this data submitted to you. And you asked me, and I have done it in this form of a letter to Ms. Reichert, because that's correct, she asked me the question and I reported to her. You wanted the 11 colleges and universities to answer those questions directly to you. Subsequently, even you haven't formally asked me, you asked me that I have to also look at these letters, but just in case if there was a discrepancy. Ironically, there was, as I reported to this committee, there were very, very minor, which I went twice on the record saying there are minor discrepancies and are negligible. And I supported the presidents on their numbers.
Was Representative Striley right in his assessment of the fact that had you used the self-selected peers that are permitted in iPads,
Yes, sir.
that the situation would have looked even worse for the campuses?
Yes, sir. As yesterday, I'll be happy to I have the numbers to present it to you right now. Yes, last night I was in Grand Forks before the economic development course. There were more than 150 people there, and I made a presentation, and I put all three. The fact of the matter is, better use, yes, if you would use the self-selected institution, they would have looked much worse
Than the national
than
average,
the national average,
which is what you used
Exactly.
in your presentation to the committee.
Exactly. And the fact that
So the fraud may be that you made them look better.
if you say so. And also for your information, I wanted to go on record that Ms. Porter, as well as Dr. Reedy and all the validation team and Mr. Thursby, only and only regard to those 17 questions, they were only able to give me 3 or 4, and one of them was not even correct. 3 or 4 as Representative Grandy asked, that they had a long time, more than a week, to give those data, and I can assure you I have record, and I can only 3 or 4 of 17 questions, so you can see. And there was no attempt whatsoever to justify positions for the Chancellor's office, because we have the positions, and in fact, I never would ask you to do additional. We have so many people that sits, they should be capable of digging this number and organizing. So I'm never gonna ask for those positions. That's a matter of leadership.
Yesterday, you presented to the committee some recommendations to resolve data inconsistencies across the institutions. And the difficulty you expressed to us was that you cannot get data to be consistent among the institutions, and that there's a real effort needed to make those changes. I was given the task in 2001 to be one of those folks who pushed for the new software program to be properly implemented in state government and higher education. So for 12 years now, I've been involved in this. And I have constantly been frustrated with the fact that we cannot have consistent accounting codes across higher education. State government doesn't seem to have any problem. Higher education, who are the entities that teach our students how to do these things, seem to have significant problems with it. I find that disturbing. You would think the folks that are teaching our young people how to do this could get it done. But no, we're still 12 years later getting reports like this that our data is bad, even though we've spent tens of millions of dollars to provide them with a system. Representative Striley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a point on trying to somehow make the data look how it is, so then more people would be added to the office. Well, if you read the audit report, it clearly says we don't need to manipulate any data. The audit report says that we should be doing some of that stuff. So I mean, that argument I just think is done in the audit report.
Questions for Dr. Shirvani? Representative Williams.
Not a question, it's a statement more than anything else, if I might.
You certainly may, Representative Williams. Everybody else has had the opportunity, and I've certainly said mine.
Earlier this session, I was asked to have dinner by Mr. Shirvani, and I sat with him and I had dinner with him, and the point I made to him was, throughout this whole process, relative to the governor's initiatives and whatever, I would be objective. I have tried to be objective. I realize that we've been requested to have a hearing by the person who brought this issue to the front. However, I've maintained that we are, to an extent, not prepared to have a hearing, so to speak, on this issue. I think it's been very divisive for our group. I think we're losing track to an extent of our true mission. And I don't think it's going to go anywhere. And I have the utmost respect for you and the other members of this committee. But we're in an area where we do not have expertise. If there's going to be a hearing, it should be by an independent counsel or someone else. We are taking valuable time, and I understand why, but I will submit to you that when this is all over, we will have accomplished very little except hurt our relationship and our real mission. And I hope that you all accept that the way it's intended.
Representative Williams, with you, I'll always accept it the way it's intended. And Representative Williams also, there has been so much information that I believe has been distorted about higher education, the board, the chancellor, and so forth. And it has been so one-sided that I just felt compelled to have give the chancellor the opportunity to be vindicated, at least to some extent, of these charges, the latest charges.
And I honor that and I accept that as what you say. However, to continue this, I do not think it's going to be fruitful, and I don't think it's going to go anywhere.
Representative Williams, I agree with you 100%. Unless somebody on the committee has anything else for the Chancellor, this part of our day is over. Anyone else on the committee got anything else for the Chancellor? All right.
Take a break.
Committee members,